eventually a television contract with Fox Sports. Fox did such a good job with them through the years, and then they left for ESPN about a year and a half ago.
Right.
I think the jury's still out with ESPN because they've got so much programming that they just don't give the sport the attention that Fox did. And certainly they've got ESPN Plus with their subscription.
Yeah.
Their subscription TV, and of course the pay-per-views as Fox did for the big time fights or the highly publicized fights. But all the other stuff is missing right now, and it'll be interesting to see if the sport loses some fans.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. I want to bring up two key points for the time that we have, and then I'll bring on later. We'll get into it in more detail when we're not so much focused on the Baseball Hall of Fame and the Super Bowl, because I think I'm going to let you be the guy that brings MMA to the forefront to promote it. First and foremost, I think the one thing that did help the sport was when Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor fought. And Conor, for a guy that had to cross over to the other side, put together a pretty decent performance against a guy that he was thoroughly outclassed by.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, look, there's been some specific individuals in the last 20 years. You mentioned one, Chuck Liddell,
right,
who has been iconic for the sport. Of course, Ronda Rousey, who ushered in, women's MMA in the UFC, did the same to publicize the sport in a big way. But probably the biggest star that the sport's had is Conor McGregor.
Right.
And for good reasons and bad reasons, but he certainly is the most notable star the sport's had.
Right.
He's outspoken, and that certainly helps to promote the sport. He's from Ireland, and of course, he's got his loyal fans that seem to travel everywhere. And so his return, this past weekend in UFC 246 was big for the sport. His fight against, I just lost the name, we just spoke about it, Floyd Mayweather.
Right.
Was interesting how it came about. I mean, these guys and girls don't get paid a lot of money, and it was really McGregor that brought, that started bringing some big-time money and attention to the sport. And so he was getting big enough that he could start to demand some things. And honestly, behind the scenes, McGregor was working on a union for the fighters. And I believe this was a way of placating McGregor by allowing them to make that big payday in the Mayweather fight, and stop trying to create a union, which would obviously cost the owners of UFC, before it was Zuffa, the Fertitta brothers especially, a lot of money, and they sort of took care of him. But now he's back.
Well,
the famous word of Eminem, he's back.
One other note while we have a few minutes, and you brought this up, and I want to elaborate on it. We have like 4 minutes or so to go. But I think ESPN's made a bunch of blunders from a television standpoint. I think that they underestimated the value that the National Hockey League had, and I thought the NHL, unfortunately, made a mistake by leaving ESPN, because I think Gary Thorne, Bill Clement were excellent announcers, and I think that NBC actually turns out all right because they had 3 networks that they can broadcast, but that was a blunder to spend so much money on the NBA and not give the NHL enough time to build an audience. And I wouldn't rule out down the road, I don't know how and when it'll happen, whether the NHL would be better served to go on ESPN in addition to NBC, but that was a blunder in television programming by ESPN to even let the NHL get away and overpay for the NBA.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because at the time the NHL took a lot of the heat for that, but it was really ESPN's choice to not take the NHL.
Right.
We'll see. We're only a couple of years removed from when ESPN laid off a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
And they were in some trouble. So we'll see what they do. We'll see what they do with this sport. It'll be interesting, and we'll see what happens with McGregor. He says he wants to fight 3 or 4 times this year. I think that's a little ambitious. I would expect the next time we'll see him will probably be sometime in March, maybe UFC 248, where they'll put him on the card, and I think the opponent will be Jorge Masvidal. After that, I think he's really barking up the wrong tree by going at a higher weight class. I mean, he's been fighting at he fought 170 with Cerrone. If he's going to fight Masvidal, it's going to be a 170 welterweight again. Kamaru Usman is the champ at that division. I think he's a little too big and powerful for him. We saw what happened to him in both Nate Diaz fights, when he lost in the fight when he won. And Diaz is a welterweight as well. And ultimately what he wants is another shot at Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is a lightweight. So to go through 2 or maybe 3 welterweights just to get a shot at Nurmagomedov, I don't think he can make it. So I think what the plan will be is to try to see if he can beat Masvidal in March, and then during fight week in Vegas in July, they'll try to set up that rematch between Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor, and won't that be fun?
Yeah, and that was where I was going next with this. Thanks, Mike, for bringing that up. I know that he definitely wants to avenge that loss, and we know that Dana White certainly wants to go ahead and make that match happen for sure. And you're right, Dana White's not stupid. Even though this isn't boxing, we all know that revenges or trilogies are where a lot of the money is at, especially if the first one leads up to the second. So I'm totally with you, all the way. I think that fight is inevitable. I really do.
Yeah, I think you'll see Masvidal sometime in March. I'm gonna bet it's Vegas on March 7th, UFC 248. If he can win that fight, I think that'll set him up for July in Vegas during fight week, which is the UFC's big week and their big payday event every year. And then at some point, he is going to have to close down his career, and I think that's when you'll see the third and final fight between Diaz and McGregor. It won't be for any kind of a title, but just one last kick at the pay-per-view can for both.
And one last thing, do you feel that some of Conor McGregor's out of the octagon antics ultimately catch up with him, because he's portraying himself in such a way where I understand a lot of it's self-promotion and all that, but at what point is he going to finally get himself into trouble where there's no point of return for some of his antics?
Well, I think it's very possible that it will happen at some point. I don't think the UFC is going to worry about it too much. I think they're going to get what they can out of Conor McGregor for as long as they can.
Right.
And at what point he gets in trouble, I think he's going to be on his own. They've done what they've had to do to keep him right now because he's too valuable a commodity for the business.
Right.
But when he shows that he's not that valuable anymore, and he gets a little bit long in the tooth and not able to be a winner anymore, then I think that he's going to have to fight his own battles outside the octagon.
All right, well, on that note, Mike, just so you know, we appreciate you being on talking MMA. You're definitely going to get a lot more exposure on here, not only talk about MMA, but we're going to be talking a lot of hockey and boxing as well. So plan on coming on more frequent if you'd like to talk about each and every one of those sports. I know the Wilder fight, Deontay Wilder fight's coming up, February 23rd. So, we're going to book a few more dates with you, Michael. Appreciate you being on tonight talking MMA. Anything else you want to add while we close it out?
No, this is great, guys. I mean, I'm happy to get on with you and to talk hockey or MMA or both. So there's a long winter ahead of us. You
bet. So, all right. Well, with that said, thank you very much, Michael, and we'll definitely be talking soon. Michael Santos, our hockey insider, goes to MMA tonight. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you. All right. So, with that said, what are your thoughts about some of the?
I think it's the MMA is such a big thing. I mean, in my social circles, I have friends constantly berating me with text messages about whether or not they want to go out and watch the fight. And honestly, I'm not going to pay $35 a head at a bar to see McGregor knock a guy out in a minute. That's usually how these things turn out. But it's entertaining as hell. I mean, everybody loves it and it's become such a big industry. I give credit to Dana White because if we remember in the 90s, the MMA was not anywhere close to what it is now. So he, all the credit really goes to him and some of those names that he's really had there, obviously Diaz and McGregor. But if we're talking more on McGregor, and I think you and me have had a conversation about him in the past, he goes from either very funny and candid on social media to just downright annoying. I don't think I'm going to rub anybody the wrong way unless it's him or his agency when I say that. But again, at the end of the day, everybody's entitled to their opinion. He just says some things that really get under your skin. But what did Ali do? Well, Ali was the king of trash talking.
Yeah, but you can't compare Ali.
I'm not saying
him.
Subject matter, it's very different, but it's trash talking. He just takes it to the 11th degree.
Well, yeah, 111th degree. I've never seen Muhammad Ali get involved with a bus and do what he did.
Although Conor McGregor has never released a spoken word trash talk album like Ali did when he was still Cassius Clay.
Whatever. All right, you're delusional here, but that's okay.
I'm not saying they're any similar in what they say. It's just the way McGregor exacerbates it to an extent where it just, again, at times it's funny, and other times it's just like, dude, you need to cut it out.
McGregor makes Dennis Rodman look like a darn saint, and I'm leaving it there. Leave it there.
That's all you can say.
That's all. With that said, okay, we'll welcome our next guest, David Levin, who works for Fansided. And David, obviously, we're wrapping up the Sports Exchange tonight with some baseball talk. I know everybody's favorite subject. And today we have a few guys that just entered the halls of Cooperstown. Thanks for being on the show, David.
Thanks a lot, guys, for having me on. Just before we start, Scott, remember I told you there will be one writer who will keep Derek Jeter off the ballot for being unanimous.
Oh, yeah.
I hope that wasn't you, David.
No, that wasn't me, but I can guarantee it's a Boston fan.
Well, we've already addressed that already, but okay, thanks for reinforcing the obvious.
Well, I understand, but I also know that there's reports all over the place that it's unknown. So
yeah, unknown for a couple of weeks. It'll be known.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Then we'll go to the story. So how's everybody doing?
Doing great.
Having
a good time. We have a very good show that we've had a lot of balance. We've had memorabilia. We've had a little bit of baseball. We've had football. We have MMA, and now we have baseball. Where we started with baseball, continued, and now you're going to wrap it up.
Okay, but that's a lot of pressure. But anyway, here it goes. I think I'm more excited about the fact that Larry Walker is in the Hall of Fame than I am Derek Jeter, because Derek Jeter is, he's the can't miss guy. Larry Walker getting into the Hall of Fame to me is just fantastic. I watched him play baseball when he was playing for the Expos in the farm team. When he was here in Jacksonville for the Suns, he was here for a brief stint. And I had a chance to meet him when he was young. Really good, outstanding guy. Really well liked, great baseball player. Maybe underrated.
Oh yeah.
For the fact that you don't talk about the greats of all time, but over time, his career speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I told you earlier today, and I'll say it again, I'm glad Walker got in. 10th year, got in. Better late than never. Who knows how long it would have taken with the veterans. Guess what? We'll never know. It won't matter. The man does deserve to get in. I know a lot of people have contrasting viewpoints on it, but doesn't matter anymore. The man's going to Cooperstown, and rightfully so. Happy for Larry.
That really is all that matters, is that once you're in, you're in.
Right.
Have y'all talked a little bit about who didn't get in and how close they're getting?
Yeah,
in terms of...
Well, if you're talking Curt Schilling, yeah. Okay, if you're talking about the steroid guys that I really could give a lick about, then we've talked about it because we have to, but not elaborate to the extent.
I want to make sure I don't overlap anything, guys. That's all.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, we have, but again, it's so pertinent, especially right now. It's like a fresh wound, just considering those three didn't get in. That I think it still bears discussion. And David, you know what? Give your insight on it, because I think more voices is good for us.
At some point, Barry Bonds is going to get in the Hall of Fame, and he's inching closer. Clemens, first of all, they were Hall of Famers before they allegedly did this. So remember, they haven't been caught, but then again, they have been caught. Barry Bonds, before he started taking all this crap, he was the best hitter in baseball.
Yeah.
Right.
And just like Alex Rodriguez was the best home run hitter before he admitted taking steroids.
Mm-hmm.
Those players will get in at some point. They'll